Hi everyone, Neko here with another recap. Naoto is a second-year high school student who is constantly teased and mocked by his younger classmate Nagatoro. Although at first he hates it, over time he has gotten used to Nagatoro's antics and they seem to have become genuine friends with some growing feelings between them. One day Naoto is reading a manga about a young student council secretary who works under a harsh student council president. But one day, the secretary found the president cheating during an exam, and she uses this as blackmail to turn the tables on their relationship. Soon, the secretary uses her advantage over the president to make him do whatever he wants. Naoto finds the manga way too relatable, and the secretary reminds him of Nagatoro. Meanwhile, Nagatoro arrives bringing new loafers she wants to show off to him. She teases him to fish for compliments but is disappointed with his lack of reaction. Nagatoro then finds the manga he is reading and she reveals she is a fan of the series because she finds the secretary protagonist very relatable. Nagatoro compares him to the president in the manga and wonders if she can use the moves she learned in the manga. Nagatoro shows him that in later volumes of the work, the president is forced to lick the secretary's shoes. So Nagatoro takes some water and teases Naoto, but when some water accidentally spills on her shoes, Nagatoro changes her mind. Naoto decides to clean it up with a rag instead, to both of their embarrassment. The next day Naoto is walking to school when he spots Nagatoro. After thinking about all the ways that Nagatoro has surprised him, Naoto wonders if he can try to surprise her this one time. But when Naoto stops himself, Nagatoro reveals that she knew he was behind her all along and she teasingly calls him a stalker. She fake threatens to call the police when Naoto reveals he has trouble approaching people. Nagatoro decides to help him with approaching people, so they start to roleplay different scenarios of meeting people you know. Nagatoro demonstrates the different ways to greet people, but she gets more and more violent with each iteration. Her last way is hugging him from behind, which makes him incredibly embarrassed. Naoto is determined not to give in to her teasing, but has to beg her to stop when she teases that she will tell everyone at school about their hug. Later Naoto is thinking about greeting her with a pat on her head, or if he actually tried to hug her from behind. But Naoto isn't confident enough until he accidentally trips and hugs her. An embarrassed Nagatoro hits him off when Maki and Yoshi also arrive. They announce that they will be going to a party after school and invite the two of them. Later at school, Naoto is thinking about the after party when Nagatoro wonders why the art club classroom seems to be so warm. Naoto reveals that the AC seems to be broken to her disappointment. She proudly reveals tights that will help keep her warm, but Naoto is surprised that she owns tights. Nagatoro points out their school requires skirts so the girls have to be prepared for all sorts of the weather, and Naoto realizes that Nagatoro usually wears skirts all the time. But when Naoto accidentally insinuates he likes seeing Nagatoro's legs, she pounces on the opportunity to tease him and orders him to help her put on the tights as payment. But when Naoto starts to help her after Nagatoro bruises his pride, he finds that Nagatoro is actually quite embarrassed. Naoto also takes too long, so Nagatoro punishes him by trapping his arm. Afterwards, Naoto compliments Nagatoro on her tights, and they head out to meet Maki, Yoshi, and Sakura. At the sushi restaurant, Naoto points out that he doesn't have much money, but Nagatoro tells him to eat as much as he wants. Naoto decides to cut loose and enjoy himself, but finds himself constantly having to get food for the rest of the group. Nagatoro then announces that the group should treat Naoto to some special dishes because of his hard work during the cultural festival. Everyone comes up with different forms of nigiri for him to enjoy by combining different flavors and sushi, but Nagatoro starts to become jealous. But when Nagatoro shows off her creation, everyone calls her new sushi an affront to cooking. Naoto notices the teasing, so he eats it anyway, which cheers Nagatoro up, so she starts to tease all of them at the table who now want to try Nagatoro's new invention. One evening at school, Naoto and Nagatoro are in the art club where Nagatoro is having fun catching snacks in her mouth. After Naoto compliments her on her impressive skills, she challenges him to try and successfully tosses a treat into his mouth. Later Naoto is working in the art club alone, but is feeling uninspired and burnt out while painting. Suddenly the club president Sona arrives and after observing his work proclaims that he has been slacking off on his efforts. She tells him not to rest so easily after the cultural festival and gives him a ticket to the local zoo. Sona tells him that she usually used nature to inspire her when creating art. She also gives him a second ticket and tells him he might as well bring Nagatoro. Meanwhile, Nagatoro was walking outside and overheard some of the conversation. After a little spying, she realizes that Naoto has tickets to the zoo and is secretly happy about the possibility of going. She pretends to act casual in the art club, but notices that Naoto is having trouble asking her to go to the zoo with him. Naoto is imagining the fun times he has had with Nagatoro during the summer, so he leads into the zoo question by asking if she likes animals. Nagatoro then starts to tease him as Naoto struggles to come up with an invitation for her, but she starts to calm down after noticing he is losing his confidence. But after Naoto keeps struggling, Nagatoro manages to steer the conversation to the zoo, and Naoto is finally able to ask her to go with him over the weekend. A pleased Nagatoro teases him about his invitation, but easily accepts, much to his embarrassment. Later during the weekend, a dressed-up Naoto meets up with Nagatoro, who has also prepared for their zoo date. Nagatoro hasn't been to the zoo in a long time, and Naoto gives Nagatoro a drawing book. But she becomes disappointed when he reveals that this wasn't actually a date, and he just wants to practice drawing. Nevertheless, Nagatoro has fun watching the animals, especially the red pandas. Though when she tries to share her excitement with Naoto, he is too focused on drawing. Since he is taking a long time, Nagatoro becomes gloomy but cheers up when he offers to entertain her. Naoto offers to help teach Nagatoro to draw animal sketches, but while Nagatoro struggles, Naoto is able to successfully draw the red panda. Nagatoro then challenges Naoto to teach her to draw in a more hands-on way, but an embarrassed Naoto thinks that it is too much. Although reluctant, Naoto eventually agrees to help guide her hand for drawing. But Nagatoro just makes fun of how nervous Naoto seems to be. In time, Nagatoro makes progress, and the two of them go to observe different animals to draw and end up having fun. Later they compare their results, where Nagatoro complains about her drawing quality, but Naoto reveals that he finds her skill as a beginner very impressive, which makes her happy. Nagatoro also compliments his ability to capture the liveliness of animals, and Naoto starts to feel himself becoming more inspired. Remembering Sana's words, he looks at their work fondly while Nagatoro leaves for the restroom. Though while she is gone, two rude strangers arrive and start to tease Naoto about the art. In particular, they start to make fun of Nagatoro's work, which steadily makes Naoto very angry, and he lashes out at them to defend her work. Nagatoro arrives and seems to recognize the two strangers, who seem to become very nervous after seeing her. After she confronts them and subtly threatens them, they nervously leave Naoto and Nagatoro alone. Naoto starts to feel bad that he can't stand up for himself, but Nagatoro had seen him defend her work while she was gone and feels that Naoto is actually growing in confidence. She gives him a rare compliment, and the two of them head back into the zoo. Naoto asks Nagatoro what her favorite animal is, and she takes them to the sloth, but this time asks Naoto to draw separately from her. Later, she shows off that while he was drawing the sloth, Nagatoro was actually drawing Naoto, comparing his behavior to the slow sloth. At first, Naoto is grumpy with the comparison, but he finds that Nagatoro's skill greatly improved, and she seemed to have worked hard on her art. A pleased Nagatoro then continues to tease him as they leave the zoo together. Later one afternoon, Naoto and Nagatoro are relaxing in the art club, where Nagatoro has just woken up from a nap. She gets a text message from her friends for a girls' night out, so she leaves the art club, but accidentally leaves her phone behind. Naoto notices and decides he will try to return it to her, but since Nagatoro is in a different year, he needs to search for her class. After looking around the school, he runs into Orihara, who decides to help him find Nagatoro's class after he is able to say Nagatoro's first name, which is Hayase. He doesn't find her in her classroom, but notices Yoshi and Maki coming out from another class. He then is almost cornered by Sakura and her friends, and Naoto is forced to hide in a locker in Nagatoro's class. Nagatoro herself arrives, and she starts to gossip with her friends while Naoto is forced to eavesdrop while inside the locker. When Nagatoro's friends Sakura and Neko start talking about the type of guys they like, they confront Nagatoro about her type of guy. Nagatoro tries to dodge the question while Naoto nervously listens, and Nagatoro reveals she likes guys she can casually hang out with. Naoto thinks about all the times he has been with Nagatoro, but her friends tease her for her plain answer. Nagatoro then discovers she is missing her phone, and they wonder if she left her phone in the art club. After they point out that Nagatoro has been hanging out in the art club a lot, Naoto accidentally makes noise from the locker. Nagatoro and her friends start to become suspicious, and Nagatoro discovers Naoto in the locker. After Nagatoro finds out that Naoto was returning her phone, she distracts her friends to help him escape. Outside the classroom, she scolds him for genuinely being creepy and eavesdropping, and demands to know what he has heard while she chases him off. Later one day, the school is having a marathon, and in an attempt to impress Nagatoro, Naoto has been training hard at night to keep up with the group, but he still finds himself behind on the day of the marathon. After school starts the marathon, Nagatoro arrives to run alongside him, and she challenges him to a race between him and his friends. Nagatoro teases Naoto on his slow pace after he refuses the challenge, when suddenly Sana appears in a bunny costume and passes them. Nagatoro and her friends decide they need to win against the president, and after calling Naoto a turtle, they help push each other. But Nagatoro and Naoto get separated by her friends during a red light, so they have to try to catch up to Sana alone. While running together, Nagatoro notices that Naoto seems to have greatly improved his running ability, and she teases him about the training he must have done. But suddenly Naoto injures himself and twists his ankle and has to stop running. He asks her to keep going to catch the president, but she decides to help him instead to finish the race. While Nagatoro is helping him, she compares the situation to a dramatic movie, and Naoto feels embarrassed for getting help but appreciates her help. Suddenly Nagatoro offers to carry him instead, because they will be able to get through the marathon faster. Naoto refuses at first because he is worried that he weighs too much for her, but Nagatoro continues to insist. Naoto is impressed with her ability, but also notices that Nagatoro is starting to get tired. He expresses his worry for Nagatoro's health, which makes her embarrassed, when suddenly Nagatoro's friends arrive. They decide to work together to carry Naoto, and their group manage to catch up to Sana and eventually surpass Sana. But a teacher spots them and disqualifies them from the race. A few days later at school, Naoto notices that Nagatoro has recently been missing from the art club. After texting her about her whereabouts, Nagatoro doesn't give him a direct answer. Naoto later finds Maki and Yoshi at school, and asks them if they know why Nagatoro hasn't been in the art club recently. After they tease him about his interest in Nagatoro, they reveal that she has been sick for the last couple of days. Maki then gives Naoto their class homework and tells him to go visit Nagatoro, and drop off her homework for her, wishing him good luck. Later that day, Naoto goes to Nagatoro's house and brings a gift just in case, but he is worried that Nagatoro might be too sick. After nobody answers the door, he walks into the courtyard, but is caught spying by a woman who starts to take pictures of him. After teasing that she will call the police, Naoto defends himself showing Nagatoro's homework, and the woman reveals that she knows him and her name is Misaki, Nagatoro's older sister. Before Misaki had seen Naoto enter her house, she was shopping for snacks at the convenience store nearby for her and her sister. But after they clear up the misunderstanding, she invites him into the house. Inside the house, Naoto awkwardly has tea with Misaki, who tells him that Nagatoro is resting and sleeping. Misaki tells him that Nagatoro has told her a lot about him, and she teases him about his friendship with her little sister. Naoto then notices the pictures of a young Nagatoro around the house, and when Misaki notices, she teases him that if he is interested in knowing more about Nagatoro, Misaki can possibly help him. Naoto thinks about his time this past year with Nagatoro, and realizes that he does want to learn more about the first year, so he hesitantly admits that he'd like to learn more about Nagatoro from Misaki. But suddenly a sick and sleepy Nagatoro arrives in her pajamas, who starts to panic when Naoto sees her in a disheveled state. Misaki teases Nagatoro for her panic, and while Nagatoro is getting ready, Misaki apologizes for her behavior. Misaki also tells him that Nagatoro has already recovered from her cold, but is taking the day off. Nagatoro arrives back at the room and starts to argue with Misaki until the older sister reveals a special pudding that Naoto had brought as a gift. Nagatoro loves pudding, so although she is still angry that Naoto has arrived unannounced, she begins to forgive him, especially as Misaki uses the pudding to prepare a delicious dessert. Misaki also makes one for Senpai, and uses the opportunity to interrogate the both of them. Naoto begins to sense a dangerous feeling from Misaki, and Nagatoro quickly orders Naoto to eat the dessert in her room and to avoid Misaki. While in her room, the two of them enjoy the dessert while Nagatoro is still grumpy with her sister. Naoto apologizes for arriving unannounced, and Nagatoro forgives him while also thanking for visiting her. While they are enjoying the pudding together, Nagatoro challenges him to allow her to feed him, and although he is embarrassed, she keeps prodding, so Naoto hesitantly agrees since nobody is watching. But when Naoto starts to eat the pudding, Misaki suddenly arrives with drinks and sees them. Misaki then teases the two of them while Nagatoro tells her sister to leave. Misaki leaves and promises to interrogate Naoto very soon. Later, Naoto is thinking about Nagatoro's old pictures and he wants to learn more about her, but he feels that the atmosphere is a little awkward. Naoto begins to leave, but Nagatoro demands he stay to play a fighting game with her. Last time they played, Naoto destroyed her, so Nagatoro states that she has been practicing hard and has become a much better player. As the two start their match, Naoto can tell that Nagatoro has been practicing hard, but Naoto is still about to use his skill to win against her. But when Naoto is winning, Nagatoro demands he tell her what he discussed with her sister, which breaks his concentration, and he loses the match. After an unsatisfactory answer, Nagatoro continues to challenge Naoto, and soon Nagatoro is able to win matches against Naoto. A grumpy Naoto complains he is out of practice, so Nagatoro decides to challenge him to a game, and if he wins, she will tell him one of her secrets. A nervous Naoto wonders what kind of secrets Nagatoro might have, and he shyly agrees to the challenge. But when they start the match, Nagatoro uses the opportunity to keep teasing Naoto about his intentions for the match, and why he might be interested in her secrets. Though when Naoto admits that he wants to learn more about her first name, Nagatoro becomes shocked. She realizes that she never told Naoto her first name, but she quickly recovers to her teasing when she interrogates Naoto on why she wants to know her first name. The two of them accidentally tie, as their match runs out of time, and which means that Naoto has won. An embarrassed Nagatoro then starts to reveal her first name, but Naoto interrupts her. Nagatoro is confused, until Naoto tells her that he feels like he wants to learn her first name, but in a more appropriate moment, and that one day he will ask her property for her first name. A touch Nagatoro agrees, until Misaki barges into the room with old school photos to Nagatoro's horror. Nagatoro quickly demands Misaki leave the room, but her older sister ends up showing some pictures to Naoto. Later that night, an awkward Nagatoro sends off Naoto, but then gives him a proper teasing farewell. And on the way home, Naoto thinks about Nagatoro's first name, which he has learned is Hayase. The next day Nagatoro arrives at the club room because she has fully recovered from her cold. She teases him that he should get a reward for visiting her, and proposes that she model for him. But after teasing some poses, she makes fun of his nervous reactions to her poses. Nagatoro then shows off an athletic pose of her kicking, but after Naoto agrees, Nagatoro soon realizes that holding a kick in the air is really difficult. Naoto notices that Nagatoro is cramping after she stubbornly refuses to give up, and when she falls over, Naoto manages to catch her to both their embarrassment. One morning Nagatoro is walking to school when she notices Naoto on the road. She goes to greet him, but Naoto is nervous because he wants to greet her by her first name. He gets too anxious so he doesn't, which makes her disappointed. Nagatoro then pulls on his sleeve and makes fun of his reaction, and she reveals she has been reading articles on the internet about teasing guys. Naoto claims that he isn't flustered, which makes Nagatoro annoyed, and she tries to keep pulling on his sleeve while he avoids her. Naoto ends up not flustered anymore, and just ends up annoyed, until he tries to defend himself and they end up holding hands on accident. Meanwhile, Nagatoro's friends arrive and start to make fun of them, and Nagatoro tries to claim she was practicing her judo moves on Naoto. The next day Naoto realizes that he might be sick, so his mother asks him to stay home from school. But while he is gone, Nagatoro quickly realizes that he is missing from school after seeing the art room empty. She decides to text him, and Naoto tells her that he is homesick, so Nagatoro calls him because she feels she might have accidentally given Naoto his cold. She also feels bad after hearing that his parents aren't at home to take care of him. He wakes up after hearing his door ring, and discovers Nagatoro spying on him from the window. An embarrassed Nagatoro reveals that she was checking up on him, and came into the house after nobody answered the door. Naoto invites her into the house, and Nagatoro agrees, and when Naoto tries to go back to the couch, Nagatoro tells him to go sleep properly in his bed to recover. She orders and pushes him to his room, but becomes nervous when Nagatoro teases him about searching his room for illicit material. Naoto is unable to stop her, but when he starts coughing, she quickly stops teasing him. After putting him to bed, Nagatoro doesn't have a thermometer, so she uses her forehead, which makes Naoto extremely flustered. Later that night, Naoto is slowly getting worse due to his cold, so Nagatoro prepares a water towel to help him, and over the next couple hours she helps him hydrate and takes care of him. She also explains to her family her whereabouts, and when Naoto reveals he hasn't eaten anything all day, Nagatoro refuses to leave until he has something to eat. Naoto is worried that her family is worried about her, but Nagatoro is determined to cook her extra spicy curry dish. While she is getting ingredients, Naoto has sickness-induced dreams about getting married to Nagatoro, and in a daze he accidentally calls the real Nagatoro by her first name, which shocks her. But when Nagatoro tries to get him to say her name again, Naoto quickly passes out and falls asleep. A disappointed Nagatoro then watches Naoto sleep, wishing he would say her name again. But suddenly Naoto's mother arrives home from work, shocking Nagatoro. The next morning Naoto is feeling better, and when he goes for breakfast his mother reveals that she met Nagatoro for the first time the night before. After she thanked Nagatoro for checking up and taking care of him, Naoto's mother starts to tease him and asks Naoto who she is, to his embarrassment. Later on the way to school, Naoto realizes that he might have accidentally called Nagatoro by her first name while he was in a sickness-induced dream, and when he meets her later he senses that the atmosphere has become a little awkward. But when Nagatoro goes back to teasing him normally, the two of them are accidentally caught into an embarrassing position again by her friends, and Nagatoro uses her judo excuse again. One day Nagatoro is having dessert with her sister Misaki when she asks what would make a good Christmas present. Misaki quickly determines Nagatoro intends to get Naoto a present, and starts to tease her, but she also gives her sister genuine advice. She also tells her to think about what might be useful for Naoto's daily life. Meanwhile, Naoto is dreaming about Christmas with Nagatoro, and getting her a special gift. He wakes up from his dream and is anxious about how Nagatoro might react if he actually gave her a Christmas gift. Later at school, Nagatoro and Naoto are leaving after the school closing ceremonies when Nagatoro starts to talk excitedly about Christmas Eve. A nervous Naoto tries to give Nagatoro a present, but before he can, they are interrupted by all of Nagatoro's friends. They go into the library together where Maki complains that all the couples in their friend group will be going on romantic dates for Christmas, so all the single girls should have an all-night karaoke for Christmas Eve. The group quickly turns into a big argument, and Naoto accidentally notices that Nagatoro might have a gift for him. He also notices Nagatoro acting suspicious, and she also spots a possible present he might have for her. Maki asks if Nagatoro will join the single ladies for karaoke when Nagatoro insists that she isn't dating. The group tries to force Nagatoro to make a decision, so Naoto and Nagatoro come up with excuses to run away. Nagatoro's friends are unconvinced with the act. Later, the two of them are in the art club together where they struggle to try to give each other their Christmas presents. But an anxious Nagatoro and Naoto are unable to properly exchange gifts because Sana, the club president, reveals herself and interrupts them. They flee again but have to hide in the nurse's office to avoid a patrolling teacher since they are at school after hours. Finally, Naoto tries again to give a present, but they discover two students already in the nurse's room and they have to flee again, but keep running into couples. Eventually, they have to retreat to the rooftop, but they also find several couples on the rooftop already. Naoto eventually decides he needs to give the present, so on the rooftop Nagatoro opens the scarf that he has given her, and she reveals she also got him a scarf, and after some teasing they leave school. Meanwhile, Nagatoro's friends have fun at karaoke. After Christmas, Nagatoro calls Naoto if he has any plans for the new year. After he reveals that he has no plan, Nagatoro calls him boring for wanting to do nothing for the new year. She tells him that he should go to a nearby shrine for the new year as it is an important tradition. So the next day, while wearing Nagatoro's gift, Naoto goes to the shrine. He feels like he should have invited Nagatoro, but discovers that she is already at the shrine wearing a shrine maiden costume. An embarrassed Naoto asks why Nagatoro is dressed like a shrine maiden, and she calls him creepy for being so interested. Nagatoro then takes him around the shrine, showing him the proper traditions, and reveals that she works part-time at the shrine. She guides him into making a fortune and then makes fun of him when he gets a bad fortune. He then leaves her since she has to work, and then is disappointed when his fortune says he won't have good luck with relationships. Naoto then goes back in line and embarrassingly asks to buy a good luck charm from her, even though he intends to ask her to spend time with him after work. After Naoto leaves, Nagatoro teases him in texts and tells him to wait for her to finish work. They then visit more of the shrine together and Naoto accidentally takes Nagatoro to a matchmaking shrine. Nagatoro teasingly wonders if Naoto is trying to ask her out, and Naoto hesitantly admits that hypothetically he might be interested, which makes Nagatoro flustered. They then pray at the shrine together and go on a walk together, and when Naoto asks what Nagatoro prayed for, she tells him she prayed for marriage before teasing him that she was just joking. One day Naoto is trying to use contacts, but he has difficulty using them. After giving up, Nagatoro spots them in the art club at school. She teases him when he tells her that he has given up on trying contacts, and Nagatoro challenges him to make a better attempt. She announces that she will help him, but Naoto refuses because he is too scared. Nagatoro assures him that she is experienced with contacts, as she often helps her brother, and Naoto hesitantly agrees. Nagatoro then starts to help him put on contacts, while Naoto can barely hold himself together because he is too nervous. Finally, after both contacts are in, Naoto feels like the world seems clear, and Nagatoro teases him by trying on his glasses and striking poses with them. Later, the school goes to a ski camp where Nagatoro and her friends are expert skiers. They are watched by Naoto and his friends Hino and Takao, and Naoto dreams about impressing Nagatoro by getting skilled at skiing. After practicing skiing, Nagatoro approaches and greets Naoto, and his friends are shocked that he knows one of the popular girls. Nagatoro asks if Naoto will ski with her, to his friend's surprise. Nagatoro then takes Naoto on a difficult course, and quickly discovers that Naoto is horrible at skiing after he suffers a minor accident. Nagatoro is determined to help Naoto learn how to ski, and she spends several hours guiding and teaching him. But after hours of failure, Naoto is still having a lot of trouble skiing. Meanwhile, Maki, Yoshi, and Sakura snowboard past them and Naoto is disappointed. Later that night, Naoto is with his friends and admits that he hasn't improved his skiing very much. They tease him about his own private instructor, when Nagatoro, who is walking past, asks him to do some night skiing with her. But Naoto declines, to her disappointment, and after she leaves, Maki and Yoshi come over to confront Naoto. Naoto admits that he doesn't want to hold Nagatoro back so that she can have fun on the difficult courses, but Maki tells him that it doesn't matter, and the two of them leave. Naoto then changes his mind and goes night skiing, and he secretly practices on the beginner slopes. Though when he continues to have trouble, he thinks about all the things Nagatoro taught him earlier that day, and his dream about impressing her with his skiing ability. This gives him the courage to keep practicing. He then manages to help a skier out of control avoid an accident. Suddenly, a skier who is filming and not paying attention almost hits him, when Nagatoro arrives to save him. She admits that she was watching him and teases him about his ski practice. She hesitantly asks him if he would still want to ski together, and they end up continuing their ski training from that afternoon. The next day, Nagatoro is with her friends, who wonder if Naoto has improved his skiing ability. But to her horror, Nagatoro watches as he quickly crashes. Soon they return to school, and Sana tells Naoto that she has been accepted into art college and will be leaving for university soon. Sana tells him that it will soon be his turn to head to art school, and although Naoto is determined, he is a bit sad. Sana quickly determines that he will miss Nagatoro once he leaves school. And later Naoto wonders after a year with Nagatoro what she wants for her own future. One day Naoto is going through all the old work from former art members and Nagatoro helps him. She wonders if they can sell some of them in an auction for money, but is unimpressed to find Sana's old work. Later Naoto is attempting to do some portraits but is feeling uninspired by all the props they have around the art club. He watches Nagatoro eat and lounge about the club, and when she notices, she teases him about watching her. Naoto then admits that he might want to do portraits again, and hesitantly asks if she would model for him again. Nagatoro teases him but agrees, but when she asks for what pose he wants, Naoto doesn't have any ideas. He asks her to adopt something that comes easily to her, and Nagatoro poses in several different fighting stances from different fighting styles. He suddenly finds a pose that he feels is the most natural to her, and he wonders what fighting style it is from. After he finishes, Nagatoro compliments her work but teases him about the details. Naoto wonders where the fighting stance is from but Nagatoro refuses to answer. Suddenly, Maki, Yoshi, and Sakura arrive to tease them when they notice the portrait. Maki wonders if Nagatoro is interested in fighting again, and when Naoto wonders some more, Nagatoro quickly leaves. Later, Naoto is at judo class where he is quickly getting destroyed by all his opponents. He hopes that Nagatoro never sees him like this, but then discovers that Nagatoro has been watching from the window. The judo class announces that there will be a high school tournament, and Naoto returns to the art club. But suddenly Maki and Yoshi arrive with flyers about the judo tournament. They accidentally reveal to Naoto that Nagatoro used to practice judo before, and after Naoto asks for more information, Maki shows him she actually runs a gym. After he notices Nagatoro on the flyer, he decides to go to Maki's gym that weekend. And when he arrives at the gym, he sees Nagatoro and Maki practicing, and Nagatoro becomes so distracted she gets knocked out. An embarrassed Nagatoro demands to know why Naoto is at the gym, and Naoto admits that he truly wants to learn how to be better at judo due to his poor performance in last year's tournament. He asks if Nagatoro can help him, and an embarrassed Nagatoro hesitantly accepts to coach him. Nagatoro tells him that if she trains him, he can't give up and he must win. After some practice, she determines that Naoto does have a little judo training already, but when they go into free practice, Naoto is quickly intimidated by Nagatoro. She quickly overcomes him because Nagatoro is too terrified and passive, and he finds it impossible to escape Nagatoro's grapples. But when he accidentally calls Nagatoro heavy, she destroys him some more as punishment. Later Naoto is taking a break when he watches Nagatoro and Maki practice, and she shows him that even though Maki is larger and stronger, Nagatoro is able to use her judo skills on her. After returning from the gym, Nagatoro reveals that Maki is still a much better fighter overall. Naoto wonders why Nagatoro doesn't seem to be competing, but Nagatoro refuses to join any tournaments, and that she doesn't like judo very much anymore because there are some opponents that can't be beaten. Naoto can tell that Nagatoro has sad feelings about judo, so he calls her judo skills beautiful to her embarrassment. The next day at school, Sana calls Naoto to join her at the judo class for practice after hearing he intends to join the tournament. But when they start training, an angry Nagatoro interrupts them. Naoto admits that he would prefer Nagatoro as a trainer, so Sana leaves. Later, after weeks of training, Naoto is practicing his moves in his room and he desperately hopes to win and impress Nagatoro. Meanwhile, Nagatoro is sadly thinking about her past judo. The start of the judo tournament arrives at school, and Nagatoro quickly wins her first match. Meanwhile, Yoshi wins her match by making her opponent dizzy, and Sakura quickly loses her match. Naoto is determined to do well, and his friends cheer him on. Maki hopes to win her first match, but she is certain she will lose because she will be against Orihara, who is an Olympic candidate for Japan in judo. Naoto notices that Orihara and Nagatoro seem to have history. Maki and Orihara start their match, but while Maki tries to have an aggressive start, she is easily destroyed by the fast Orihara. After Maki loses, she admits that Orihara seems to have gotten stronger, and she tries to give some advice to Nagatoro, who will be Orihara's next opponent. Her friends tease her that she should do well to impress Naoto. Suddenly, Orihara arrives to happily greet Nagatoro, and she doesn't notice Nagatoro's cold responses. Nagatoro wonders if she should forfeit, and she leaves the club alone. Naoto tries to cheer her up for her upcoming match, and Nagatoro tells him that Orihara hadn't always been so strong. She admits that as a young kid Nagatoro grew up practicing judo, and would win lots of tournaments. Orihara was part of the same gym and would always lose to Nagatoro because she lacked Nagatoro's natural talent. But through hard work, Orihara was able to get much better at judo, and eventually beat Nagatoro. A shocked Nagatoro then lost interest in judo after losing to Orihara. Naoto tells Nagatoro that she isn't acting like herself, and that the Nagatoro he knows would not give up so easily even if her opponent is set to represent Japan at the Olympics. A touched Nagatoro then tells Naoto she will try her best, but Naoto also has to do well in his own tournament, and she challenges him to win a kiss from her. An embarrassed Naoto feels like maybe he can win, but his first opponent proves to be very intimidating. The school watches Naoto's match, but Naoto's larger opponent is able to score half a point by throwing Naoto to the ground. The spectators realize that Naoto is just being toyed with, which makes Nagatoro angry. Though when Naoto is getting pinned and is close to defeat, he thinks about Nagatoro's determination and all the practice he has gotten from Nagatoro. Then using the training that Nagatoro gave him, he is able to turn the tables and make a counterpin on his opponent. Nagatoro and her friends cheer Naoto on, and Naoto is able to capture his opponent in a pin. But although Nagatoro cheers and gives him advice, they run out of time and Naoto still loses because he couldn't get a complete pin. But to his surprise, his opponent compliments him and his friends congratulate him for his good effort. Naoto notices that Nagatoro seems to be in a better mood, and she heads to her match against Orihara. Their match starts and the class is impressed with how close the match seems to be between Nagatoro and Orihara, who are much better at judo compared to everyone else in the class. The Nagatoro still struggles against Orihara, who is still an Olympic candidate. After Orihara scores a half point, Naoto notices the class starts to cheer for Orihara. So at a critical moment, Naoto cheers for Nagatoro to her embarrassment. A determined Nagatoro is then able to perform a full throw against Orihara, but eventually loses the match by referee decision. Later after school, Nagatoro is annoyed after her loss but feels better when Orihara congratulates her for a good match. Nagatoro reveals that she is now motivated to do better, and eventually beat Orihara, and she teases Naoto asking if she wins against Orihara if he will give her a kiss. But before Naoto can answer, Nagatoro happily runs away. One day at the art club, Naoto is thinking about what his first oil painting for the new year should be. Nagatoro arrives, and Naoto can't stop thinking about Nagatoro's offer to kiss him after her judo match if she manages to win against Orihara. After some teasing from Nagatoro, he asks Nagatoro to model again and she happily agrees. But when Nagatoro decides to use the school swimsuit, Naoto refuses because he is too embarrassed. Nagatoro challenges his pride as an artist, so Naoto eventually agrees. But Nagatoro can tell that Naoto is very distracted while working on the oil painting, and he can't concentrate. Nagatoro then complains that her back hurts from modeling so long, and she demands that he give her a massage to help her relax. Naoto refuses, but after Nagatoro complains loudly, he eventually agrees. After an embarrassing massage, Nagatoro admits to Naoto that she has decided to join the judo club. This is so that she can properly train and beat Orihara, and she taunts him about the promise she made. An embarrassed Naoto doesn't believe her, and Nagatoro tells him that she was serious about her promise and is disappointed with his response. She asks him if he wants to kiss her, but Naoto tries to ignore the question. Suddenly, a girl named Hana arrives at the art club who calls Naoto her senpai. Nagatoro becomes suspicious of this new girl, who asks to join the art club. In an awkward introduction, Hana introduces herself as the younger cousin of Sana, the former art club president. Hana was also taught by Naoto when they were both in middle school, which makes Nagatoro very suspicious. Naoto introduces Nagatoro, who punishes him for not introducing her very confidently. Suddenly Hana tells them that she overheard their earlier conversation about kissing, and she asks if Naoto and Nagatoro are in a romantic relationship. The embarrassed pair quickly deny the relationship, but Nagatoro also punches Naoto for denying too quickly. Hana confirms that Nagatoro isn't technically part of the club, since she has recently joined the judo club. Hana points out that it likely just be her, and Naoto in the art club since Nagatoro will be focused on judo, which makes Nagatoro very suspicious. Nagatoro then tries to persuade Hana to quit the club because of how suspicious and creepy Naoto acts. But Hana defends Naoto since she also can act suspicious at times. Suddenly, Maki arrives to fetch Nagatoro as she has also joined the judo club. Nagatoro apologizes that she can't finish modeling, and Maki notices that she seems disappointed to leave. Hana then tries to volunteer to be a model too, but Nagatoro refuses. Later at the judo club, Nagatoro has trouble concentrating as she is thinking about the art club situation. Meanwhile at the club, Hana points out that Naoto's art seems to have greatly improved in color and vibrancy since joining high school, and she wonders if Nagatoro has something to do with his improvement. At the judo club, Orihara approaches Nagatoro and asks her if something is distracting her. Maki tells Orihara that Nagatoro is worried about Naoto, a guy in the art club, and she starts to gossip with Orihara about the arrival of Hana, a new challenger to Nagatoro's anger. With Naoto and Hana, he tells her about all the trouble Nagatoro causes him, but Hana can tell that he is uncertain about his feelings. Meanwhile, Maki and Orihara continue to tease Nagatoro about her feelings, which she continues to deny. Then Hana dramatically concludes that Naoto and Nagatoro must be in some forbidden love, and that she has gotten advice from her cousin Sana that love must be pursued at all costs. Naoto is embarrassed at Sana's influence over her younger cousin, when suddenly Hana demands he ask Nagatoro out on a date. Naoto is shocked by Hana's demand, and he can't help but dream about a romantic date with Nagatoro, eventually leading to a kiss on the beach at sunset. He refuses, but admits that he did have fun with Nagatoro at the zoo one day. Naoto tries to argue that Nagatoro isn't interested in him, and will just make fun of him, but Hana tells him that it is up to Naoto to determine what he needs to do. The two of them leave the art club together, where Sana arrives to pick up Hana on a motorcycle. Naoto is surprised to see Sana, who notices that Naoto seems to be troubled by something. Naoto doesn't want to complicate things by involving the president, but Hana quickly tattles on him and tells Sana about Naoto's relationship issues. Sana then orders Naoto to follow his heart, which makes him think of Nagatoro, and the two cousins leave on their motorcycle. After they leave, Naoto notices that the judo club is still working, so he goes to watch them, when he suddenly runs into Nagatoro. Nagatoro asks if Naoto was looking for her, and she teases him when Naoto can't admit that he was waiting for her. The two of them end up walking home together, and Nagatoro teases him about Hana joining the club. Nagatoro also misses hanging around the art club and asks Naoto if he misses her. She then punishes him for answering weakly, and wonders if there might be a way to hang out outside of the art club. Her words make Naoto think about Hana and Sana's advice, and he decides to try to ask Nagatoro to go out on a date with him. Nagatoro immediately understands what he is trying to do, so she starts teasing him, and she tells him that she would like to climb Mount Everest. Naoto imagines falling off the mountain, so Nagatoro suggests other places like the African savanna, the North Pole, and space. Though when Naoto gets demoralized and starts to change the subject, Nagatoro suggests they can go to something normal, and Naoto suggests the movies. Though when Nagatoro calls the movies kind of normal, Naoto becomes demoralized again. Nagatoro then recovers the situation by inspiring Naoto, who suggests they could go to the racetrack. Nagatoro points out that they can't gamble since they are in high school, so Naoto suggests dog fighting, which angers Nagatoro. The two of them leave before they can decide, but when Naoto passes a penguin sign, he rushes back to ask Nagatoro to go to the aquarium with him. Nagatoro orders Naoto to ask her properly, and Naoto hesitantly manages to ask Nagatoro on a practice date. But instead of making fun of him like he thought, Nagatoro happily agrees, while Yoshi and Maki, who are spying, cheer for them. The next day, Nagatoro is in a good mood while she is walking with Maki and Yoshi, and enlists Yoshi to help her do a happy dance. Meanwhile, in the art club, Hana notices that Naoto seems to be distracted, and Naoto reveals to her that he managed to ask Nagatoro on a date to the aquarium. Hana dramatically congratulates him and praises his courage, but Naoto becomes embarrassed when Hana seems to be taking the news too well. Later, Maki and Yoshi also notice that Nagatoro seems distracted, but when they notice Nagatoro has a suspicious look on her face, they decide they might need to warn Naoto of her unusual good mood. Maki and Yoshi head to the art club to find Naoto, but Hana is the only person in there, and she is suspicious of them because of their delinquent reputation. Hana also misinterprets Maki and Yoshi's intentions and thinks they are trying to sabotage the date. The next day is the day of the date, and Naoto nervously waits for Nagatoro wearing his contacts. When Nagatoro shows up, they happily greet each other. Meanwhile, Maki, Yoshi, Hana, and Sana are watching from afar. Naoto and Nagatoro take a train together to get to the aquarium. And while on the train, Nagatoro teases Naoto about the date, claiming that she is just helping Naoto practice dating. She points out that his outfit needs some work and docks him some dating points, and she tells him that he needs to have a good score if he wants to date well. Meanwhile, Nagatoro's friends spy on them while in disguise, and they are determined to take embarrassing pictures of the couple while on the date. Hana and Sana follow the train on their motorcycle, and Hana is on a mission to protect Naoto's love for Nagatoro. Though when everyone arrives at the aquarium, everybody gets separated due to the crowds, which allows Naoto and Nagatoro to enjoy the aquarium together in peace. While enjoying the penguins together, Nagatoro takes a selfie of the two of them, and while on the date, Naoto feels much more nervous than usual. Nagatoro notices several couples holding hands, and tries to give Naoto a hint that she wants to hold hands. When he is unable to understand her request, she steadily docks him dating points until he notices the rest of the group spying on them. Naoto suddenly grabs Nagatoro's hand to escape, which makes Nagatoro happy since they are finally holding hands. Maki and Yoshi try to give chase, but Hana stands in their way and refuses to leave. They prepare to fight until Sana appears, and Nagatoro's friend quickly retreats due to her prowess. Meanwhile, Naoto and Nagatoro decide to get ice cream, and Nagatoro decides to challenge herself with spicy wasabi ice cream. Nagatoro then challenges Naoto to try some, teasing him about getting an indirect kiss from her, but Naoto refuses because he is bad with spicy food. But they accidentally mix their ice cream together. Later, the two of them go to an aquarium show, and Naoto notices a lot of couples at the aquarium. He feels out of place amongst the couples, and that he doesn't deserve to be at the aquarium with Nagatoro. Though when an orca almost splashes them, he is able to protect Nagatoro from the wave. Nagatoro happily gives him a towel to dry off, and they continue spending their date at the aquarium. Eventually, they head to the nearby beach at sunset, where Nagatoro announces his official point tally after the date is 50 out of 1,000 points. She teases him that he will need to try to do better next time, and that he will probably need to practice more with her. Naoto hesitantly asks if the date was good practice for Nagatoro as well, and she tells him that for her it was a real date. Naoto answers that he felt the date was real too, and it wasn't for practice. Nagatoro then asks if they should do something to complete the date. Meanwhile, Maki and Yoshi try to interrupt the date until Yoshi grabs Maki and asks her to stop. The two of them agree to get out of Nagatoro's way and are caught by Hana and Sana. On the beach, Nagatoro suggests that they could either hug or they could kiss, and she gives him the choice while teasing him. Naoto hesitates, so they mutually decide to hug instead. But before they can hug, they notice Hana and Sana chasing Maki and Yoshi on the beach, which destroys the mood. The next day at school, Nagatoro is hanging out with Sakura, who asks her to forgive her friends, and eventually Nagatoro agrees as long as they head to the art club. But when they arrive, Nagatoro discovers Hana feeding Naoto. A suspicious Nagatoro is told by Hana that she is giving Naoto an apology meal for her actions during the aquarium date, and she reveals that she will cook for him for a whole week. A defiant Nagatoro announces that she will cook for Naoto instead, and she offers him her lunch, but Naoto is worried that she will need energy for her judo practice. Everyone is disappointed with his response, until Naoto tells Nagatoro that he should cook for her instead so that she will have meals to help her through judo practice, and Nagatoro happily agrees. And later that evening, Naoto and Nagatoro finally get their hug together. And this is all for this video. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.